Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for coming. We are nearly at the finish line. I hope you've all had a wonderful time. So we're going to make this one count with a really, really fantastic discussion. So it's a real pleasure to be introducing these wonderful people and hosting this amazing session, Inclusivity Now, Beyond Box Ticking, where we're going to explore not just the hows, but the whys of creating genuinely inclusive content and building inclusive teams in children's media. With us today are some leading members of the industry who are going to discuss their perspectives, successes, challenges, ambitions, you name it, for embracing inclusivity in this industry, from the initial sparks of project conception to the ongoing fuel of production and broadcast. So without further ado, I'll let you all introduce yourselves. Everyone ready?
Ready.
Yeah.
Let's go.
As we'll ever be.
Stefan.
Yeah, hi, everyone. Thanks, Nathan. I'm Stefan Gibbons-Arif. I'm the Head of Diversity and Inclusion for BBC Children's and Education. Nice to be here.
Hello, everyone. I'm Lottie, and I'm one of the creative directors from King Banana TV. We try and make content that we feel will positively impact the audience. And diversity and inclusion is very much at the heart of everything we do, both off-screen and on-screen. And I think we've got a little clip to show you a little bit of the stuff that we make.
Dancing robots. Soft raspberry. Meet the experts. Hi, I'm Nikhil. And I'm Jay.
Hi everybody, my name is Colm Tobin. I'm the Managing Director of Turnip and Duck. We're a writer-led creator studio based in Dublin, Ireland, and we create original IP and stuff like this.
Triggs, they're waiting. It's Maddie and Triggs and we're here to play. Adventures and stories are on the way. My eyes don't sing as much as yours, but you and me both know. The world is full of magic sounds, and I hear music everywhere I go. Maddie and Triggs, let's come and play.
And down the end here, my name's Tim Bain. I'm a creator and showrunner. I created Kangaroo Beach, which is on Milkshake and Nickelodeon, Nick Jr. And I've got a new show coming out called Let's Go Bananas for Sky Kids that comes out in the fall, made with my good friends at Brown Bake 9 Story over here. And we've got a little world premiere exclusive clip to show you.
Surprise! Let's go, bananas! Fluffle bomb!
Feeling better?
Exactly what I needed.
Everybody swing and let's go bananas. Everybody sing and let's go bananas.
Squished it.
Fantastic. Thank you, Panelists. Amazing work, I'm sure you'll agree. So to start, let's dive into what inclusivity means within the children's industry. So Stefan, I'm going to start with you because you're obviously coming at this from the BBC side, from the broadcaster side. So how do you define and approach inclusivity in working with production companies, and what strategies does the BBC have in place? But also, what should people be thinking about from an inclusion perspective when they make that initial approach to a broadcaster?
Okay, that's a big question.
It's a big question, but it's starting off strong.
So with the definition of diversity and inclusion, there's an analogy that I quite like, which probably falls down in various places, but diversity is like getting an invite to the party, and inclusion is feeling welcome at the party. So that sometimes helps me distinguish between that kind of thing. So when we talk about inclusivity in sort of the children's media industry, there are things that the BBC has supported that we are part of. For example, like the TV Access project. So that is something where we're pushing. So this isn't just the BBC, but other broadcasters are partnered with this. And the idea for that is by 2030, they want full inclusion for disabled talent so that there's no barriers for them to work in the industry. So that's one kind of thing that we would expect from indie sort of approaching us for commissions, is that they've thought about that. They've got access. They've got like lines in their budget for access. They understand that accessibility comes in many different ways, and then they're pushing for that. So, I mean, there's way more that you can explore about that. Like the 5 A's is something that we've signed up to, which is, I've written it down because sometimes I forget, but like anticipate, ask, assess, adjust, and advocate. So it's like coming up with those kind of easy to remember things that can help form the basis of like when you're approaching for a commission. And then, other part of the question, just so I answer it properly.
What should people be thinking from an inclusive perspective when approaching you?
Right, okay. Well, I think I would say the BBC are really, really great with inclusivity, and we've got so much experience with it that when production companies approach us, we kind of know when they're doing it in the authentic and genuine way. Yeah. And I think that's important. So if you're kind of like speaking the same language as us, and then that kind of is the best way forward. And all of our kind of diversity commitments, creative diversity and inclusion commitments are out there. They're public facing. We've said this is what we're committing to. So if you read up on that and know that what we're aiming for, then you can approach us in that way. So there's things like authentic portrayal, casting being open and fair, those kind of things, and diverse workforce making better content. Those are our like headline creative diversity commitments. So if indies can approach us with that same sort of those same values, then that's how best to approach.
Well, thank you. So yes, obviously, Steph, you'll come from the broadcaster perspective. Looking at the indie perspective, whoever wants to jump in first, how do your experiences align with what Steph has just said? Don't be shy.
Will I jump in?
Go for it.
I mean, obviously, we've found that broadcasters generally are extremely supportive of inclusive content. With all of our shows, we've had some great successes and some great support from the BBC. Obviously with Yakadi and with Nickel and Jay that we're currently working on. And with Milkshake as well, with Meet the Experts that we've made for them. I think it's just about making sure if you're going to be trying to make inclusive content that you have it always at the forefront of your mind, really. And consider every aspect and make sure that you've got people who really can tell those authentic stories and give you proper advice on what you're trying to do if you are wanting to create that kind of content.
I feel like in 2024 it feels like a major milestone to me that I'm presenting a show today that's got gay dads in the very central characters on the show. Look, I'm looking back 10 years ago. Yeah, it was 2014, and I was working on a very popular kids brand. I won't name it. He was a builder. We'll call him Rob. It was a reboot, and I remember at the time I just proposed to my husband because, amazingly, the Tories had legalised gay marriage, and I had no excuses anymore. And we were getting married at a castle in France, so I pitched a story where Bob was renovating a castle. So I've outed him. Rob was building a castle. I suggested, why don't we have a gay wedding at the castle? And the producer was totally excited and on board with it, and then just went away and thought about it and realised, we want to sell the show in America, and felt it was maybe a bit too evangelical over there to test those waters at the time, and still a year away from the Supreme Court there legalising gay marriage. So times were different, and we straighty 180'd the characters, and a guy and a girl got married in that castle. And then 5 years after that, 2019, so 5 years ago, I pitched this show, Let's Go Bananas, here at the International Exchange, and I just got universal love, I think, from all the broadcasters for the idea of having a family central to the show with gay dads. So a lot changed in a very short amount of time, and broadcasters were suddenly really receptive to that, which is great. And we have an episode mid-season where they get married at a castle.
Yay! I think that's amazing, but I would say, I think, there's still a long way to go, right? And there's always more we can do, and it is brilliant that everyone's on board, but I also think that there's still there are still big gaps across the board, and there's still so much more we can do, and any extra support that we can get, and obviously there are supportive things out there, but any extra support people, broadcasters and distributors and everyone can give, then obviously it all makes a difference. And we'll hopefully next time we're sat here, have made another leap forward and be doing even more. But I mean, it's brilliant that everything's moving in the right direction.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it's probably the first project that we've done as a studio where, accessibility has been at the core of the idea. So it was something we started to explore from the start, I guess. We had the idea for the show when we were delivering the audio description for a previous series, which we were doing as a sort of a contractual obligation. So it was like, you need to do this for vision impaired audiences, and we were, because we're a creative studio, we're always thinking about new ways to approach content. We're like, well, this is an afterthought. It's something we're doing on delivery, and the idea was like, well, can we create a show or an idea from the off with that audience, a vision impaired audience, at the center of it, and build the idea out from there. So that was kind of how we started on that journey. So it's not something we would have built into our shows necessarily beforehand. So we knew that wasn't our story to tell. So from there on, we kind of built it out from the very beginning, consulting with everyone from the start, I guess. So since then, it's been we've got lots of support, but from lots of different areas, from broadcasters, but also from funding bodies, and it's trying to join all those things up has been quite a challenge. It's been really enriching and really positive, and we've learned loads in the process, and I think adjusting as we go has become really important. But it's been a lot to do for a small indie, so there definitely are challenges too.
Yeah. So I think you said a lot about you've received support, but I think you've also given support as well with the shadow writing scheme. Can you just tell people a bit about what that is and why it was so important?
Yeah, so I guess with Maddie and Triggs, it's a show about a 7-year-old girl who happens to be vision impaired and her pet doggy, and they find music and adventure in the world around them. So we wanted to engage with Vision Ireland, who are the blind charity in Ireland, from the start, to just do our research, because it wasn't our story to tell, as I said. We had no personal experience of it in our lives, so we just wanted to be truly authentic from the start. And we were trying to figure out, well, how are we going to do this, or how are we going to be true to it? Even the mission of the show is well, if two kids sit down next to each other, one sighted, one vision impaired, can can neither of them have a lesser experience, was the mission. And we were like, well, how the hell do we do that? So I guess authenticity was very much baked into how we researched it, how we cast it initially, and then we had to figure out, I guess, once we started it as a podcast, audio first. So that was kind of the trick, is, well, if you can listen to it entirely, it can make sense, so we can build out from there. So it was very much an audio first program, which was led into the animation. But then we were trying to figure out, I guess, how do we get the authentic voices into the writers' room? And so we put a shout out. It's like, are there preschool writers who are vision impaired who we could hire in on the show and consult with? We didn't find any, really. We found a writer in the States called Dina Diamond, who was more of a sitcom writer and a lyricist. And the show actually has original songs in every episode, so that was fortuitous. She's actually writing all the lyrics on the show now. She's part of the writer's room in that capacity. But beyond that, we didn't have, I guess, input in the writer's room from the vision impaired community. So that's, I guess, we launched the Listen Hear Shadow scheme in Ireland, with Vision Ireland, with Screen Ireland, with National Talent Academy, with Creative SkillNet. So we had to get a lot of organisations together and kind of push them in the direction we wanted it to go. And finding the funding to do it was tricky, but well, we knew we wanted to try and do it. We wanted to pay people to do it. We wanted to pay all our writers who were on the show already to mentor them. And so getting that together was the idea. So we found 10 amazing new writers who are new to the industry. Some of them quite new. Some of them who've never any experience at all, and some who had experience in different forms of writing. So it was a broad church in terms of who was involved. So we set up a 6-week program. Run by a writer in Ireland called Dee Roycroft, which was an introduction to, I guess, animation writing essentially, and to preschool writing. So that was the first part of the scheme. And then the second part of the scheme, which is just kind of coming to an end now, is all 10 of the participants got to shadow on a Maddie and Trig script with our writing team and be part, and I guess got to drop in on some of our writers' room sessions, some of the brainstorming sessions. So we ran that program over the course of the last 8 weeks or so, and now we're getting scripts in from the 10 participants, and we're hoping that 3-4 of those will go to full commission, and that the others will have spec scripts and a bit of a step up in terms of the next steps of their career. So yeah, it's been a really big learning curve, and it's been amazing. It's been really a privilege to be involved in, but like we've never done anything like this before. So it's it was kind of all brand new, and yeah.
Fantastic. So I know having diverse crews behind the scenes is important to all three of you, I'm sure, and to you in terms of like supporting those indies to make sure that they do that. So Tim, how has having authentic representation behind the scenes helped with the storytelling in Let's Go Bananas?
Well, I realised I'm a gay dad and a kids' TV writer, and I don't think there's many people in that Venn diagram bit in the middle. And I thought, well, what a great place to start, and utilise all the crazy stuff that happens in my own household for profit. And I'm a gay dad of 3. Somehow we've defied science to have 3 children, and I found that as a writer, we're often telling a lot of the same stories in preschool, and suddenly there were all these brand new, fresh stories that could be told in this sort of family dynamic that's not always seen on television. So it started off with me coming up with ideas based on home life and stuff that maybe hadn't been explored before. So we might show a little clip from the show based on, I think this is almost where the idea for the whole show came from. We've got a beautiful daughter who's now 7 and has this gorgeous ginger hair, and she loves to have it styled in all sorts of wild and wonderful hairstyles. And my husband and I have always had short hair, apart from that mullet I had in the 80s. And we had no idea what we were doing to start off with. We, learned how to master a pigtail and a ponytail, but the more complex ones were a little tricky for us. And I thought that's a great place to start for a comedy premise for an episode. So we'll have a look at a little clip from that, please.
Alrighty, here we go. Separate into 3 strands.
Doing great, Papa.
Then tug over and under and over and... Uh-oh.
What is it?
I think I overtucked.
Well, untuck.
I can't. I'm stuck.
You need to put it in reverse. Under and over and under.
No.
I'm stuck too.
What's going on?
Nothing.
Let me see. You're stuck, aren't you?
Wait!
So that's a little sneak peek into our bathroom before school every day. She'd asked for a triple unicorn horn in that episode, I just found like there's all this fresh, lovely material to play with in that. And our script editor Jen Upton always says that untuck reminds her of RuPaul's Drag Race for some reason. But in this show, it's about 3 different families. There's also twin crocodile boys who have a single mother. There's the tiger gazelles, a tiger mum who married a gazelle dad and had little interspecies children, the tiger gazelle kids. And I'm from an, multicultural relationship myself, and there was just all these interesting stories to draw from. And to answer your question, Nathan, I think it was about filling the writer's room with people from all sorts of different family dynamics that aren't, those traditional families always that we see on TV. So, we had single parents, we had stay-at-home dads, there's also a stay-at-home dad on the show. I wanted to reflect the fact that there's lots of stay-at-home dads, which is great these days. We had someone who's raised by a couple of people who were raised by single parents who, one of them wrote a lovely story about a boy with a single mum and him finding a role model in one of his friends' dads, which was really sweet. So that they were stories being told authentically from, the family backgrounds of the writers.
Fantastic. Okay, moving in a bit of a different direction. So obviously, I think I would like to think I'm not just being an optimist and that the industry is getting better and it is improving. In what ways is it genuinely changing for a positive way? And where, as the title suggests, where does it seem to be ticking boxes, and maybe not ticking boxes, but providing like well-meaning gestures that aren't necessarily dealing with genuine actual causes and issues around lack of inclusion? What can we do to better that?
Well, I was going to use an example actually of a production we've worked with recently. So a kind of Spark Series 2 was out this year, and it was Series 1 out the other year. For those that haven't seen it, should we play the clip?
Yeah, let's play the clip now. Yeah.
That's it. Big smile. All right.
I'm fine.
So, Abby, tell me, why witches?
It's Addie. And I just thought it would help.
Bit late for the witches.
But I wanted to show everyone that Juniper can change, that it can be a place where everyone has a voice.
Including people like you. You have autism, right?
I'm autistic. Yes, my sister is too.
Greetings, neurotypicals.
So is this to inspire other kids with autism?
Autistic kids.
And other kids. And everyone. Right, Addie?
Right.
So you do see yourself as an inspiration then?
So to try and put this into context, this was this is extremely popular and award-winning series that's resonated with all ages and all audiences, and it just authentically portrays neurodiversity and it's done in the exact way that you would want it to be done authentically. With it came from a neurodivergent writer, and then on the production itself, neurodivergent production leads, obviously the cast are neurodivergent, and in the production, the BBC worked with 9 Story Media to create an inclusive environment on the production. So there were quiet rooms that were set aside, there were certain materials used in costumes for sensory requirements, plenty of breaks put into schedules, and all these kind of nuanced changes or adjustments to make an inclusive environment on set, and it just comes across on screen, and it resonates with the audience. So really that is just for me, and I didn't personally work on it. This was my predecessor who did a lot of this work. For me, seeing every level of attention and for it to come through on behind screen and on screen is how we should be doing it. And in no way do I feel like we just ticked a box with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd agree. I mean, I think it's about making it front and centre. And with our latest series, Nickel and Jay, we're working on with Chitra, we're very fortunate. She came to us. We've got obviously an authentic voice there. And we made sure that she was a part of sort of everything that we do. So she's an exec producer on the series, as well as being part of the very diverse writers' room that we have. And we also did the same thing. We tried to get people from that heritage across every level of production where we could, in our casting, we did that as well. And we've got 2 very new to the industry, very young kids from a Tamil background because of that. So that's had challenges about it, but it's also amazing, and they're very fresh, and they're definitely authentic and very proud of their heritage. So we've just tried to do the same thing there, I think, across the board. That's how you've got to look at it. What I would say about challenges, though, and there's brilliant things that you can tap into, like the diversity scheme, which we've also used on Nickel and Jay for one of our directors. So it's great that you can do that. What I would say is that those things can be sometimes quite limited. There's limited pots of money. And with shows like this, where you're trying to kind of train people up in the industry and do those mentorship schemes and stuff, I don't know whether you guys feel the same, but when you come to the end of a production, if you then don't have another series straight away or whatever, it's what happens to those people, I think. So it's quite tricky sometimes with continuity. So you can put a lot of energy and effort into trying to, upskill a lot of people to make changes and bring people in and make sure that the workforce is more inclusive and more diverse. And then it's about kind of trying to get that continuity to carry those things through. So that's where I think there's challenges sometimes.
Yeah, can I just talk about the Children's and Education Diversity Fund? So you've utilised that on Nickel and Jay, which is great. And what we intend to do with that fund, the intention is increasing diversity off screen. And what we want to do is not have it just end. And we're now really trying to make a relationship with the BBC as well, with everyone that we fund, because we're investing in these individuals. And so, I've met Nandita, and we're going to make sure that beyond the end of the production, there is, if you don't have to have anything coming up, that we're able to put her in touch with different people within the BBC and create this little talent pool of individuals where when commissioners are crewing up, we can say, hey, look, we've had these great people that we funded. Why don't you employ them? So that's where I think, hopefully, even though there are limits to how much you can apply for, we're hopefully giving them much more value by giving them that relationship with the BBC as well as the relationship that you'll have with them.
That's good to hear. Sorry, it wasn't meant to be a critique.
No.
We've done so many schemes with you guys, and it's absolutely brilliant, and it really helps. But yeah, just sort of broader picture of trying to practicalities, keep things moving on and stuff, keeping it real.
I guess we're finding with the shadow scheme with new people, we're giving them a sense of the industry, but also we're trying to be realistic in terms of what might be achievable, because a lot of the participants, for instance, some of them don't have writing backgrounds necessarily. Some of them may not want to get into preschool writing. It's a very particular niche thing. So I guess we're trying to, the feedback we've gotten has been really, really positive, but we're trying to be targeted in terms of who we think might have a really good chance of progressing, and to be, I guess we feel a responsibility that there will be something beyond this if we're setting this up. And I guess at the end of the day, we're a very small production company, and it's kind of whatever about the participants beyond the end of the series. I don't even know what we'll be doing beyond the end of the series. So there's that challenge of, well, we need to keep the company going, number one, but then how can we responsibly try and encourage more diversity in the industry? But I think we just need as much help from as many of the agencies. Like in Ireland, we do get really great support from Screen Ireland and from different agencies, and it's really appreciated. But we've had to be quite creative in terms of how we do that. So yeah, it can be and we're only halfway through the process, so we're kind of really learning as we go, and just trying to be, I guess, upfront and honest with everyone as we do it. So.
I mean, with all these initiatives that are in place, how do you measure their impact once they've started, and how do you make sure that you're creating that genuine change?
So, I mean, again, with the fund, because it's so important, because money makes a difference in terms of that investment, and for me, it's with those that we're funding. It's just seeing that their careers develop. So, a recent example, we've had someone who we funded internally as an assistant script editor. They had previously gone for a job and they just weren't experienced enough. So we funded them to get more experience, and then they were able to apply for an actual like an FTC job within the BBC based off that extra experience. And just I basically have a tracker of all the people that we funded, what they want to do, and I guess measuring and realizing that investment is just seeing them get more jobs and seeing them develop, and that's really nice because you can see an individual impact. There's obviously lots of ways to measure, and that we do in the BBC in terms of like how much commissioning spend has gone towards what we would qualify as diverse content. So that is another way. You know, in terms of the workforce, we look at percentages of the workforce in terms of representation. There's like plenty of ways to measure, and you need to in order to know where to affect change. But for me personally, I feel like the individual measurements are like the most gratifying.
Lovely stuff. So diversity often gets a very broad brushstroke, but how important is it to you that like local specific cultural contexts are considered when a lot of the time we're looking at creating global narratives? And can you give a non-specific example, if needed, of a time where this was done either really well or necessarily really poorly?
Curly one.
Oh, stumped them.
Complex question.
Yeah. Can we hear the question again, please?
Yes. How important is it to you that local specific cultural contexts are considered when creating more global narratives?
Well, for me, I think the diversity on our show is families, diverse families. So instantly, that's global. I think there's huge appeal in children's shows about families because that's who's on the other side of the screen watching. Hopefully, kids and their parents enjoying it. So I was never worried about this. This was a show that was written by British screenwriters, Canadian screenwriters. 3 different broadcasters were involved from various parts of the world, and yeah, all you had to do was have an experience living in a family to be able to, come up with stories. But yeah, hopefully dynamic sort of different families in our writers' room. But yeah, nothing local really affected it too much, I don't think.
I think it's really important, very important, that you're very specific, very nuanced, like very targeted in a way, but that you then have universal themes. So, I mean, with Nicola and Jay, again, it's very specific. It's a family of South Indian, Northern British heritage, and we're not trying to say we're like all of Asia. We're not trying to cover like a whole, whole continent or anything like that. It's like very specific to Britain. Is a particular family living a particular way with a particular cultural background. But obviously that can be global because those themes, I mean, they're similar to Tim's. It's comedy, it's family, it's a family sitcom, and that's relatable to everyone. And they have relatable scenarios all the time. They have wonderful imaginations. They have brilliant family parties. They share different events from different cultures. But those themes are completely global. But it's within a very specific, very nuanced, very authentic context. And I think that's why it works. You can't have like something that tries to do everything. Yeah. You've got to know what you're talking about, be very specific about it, and make sure that you do that right.
That's an interesting point though, where that you're not trying to speak for everyone in that community. Like I'm a bit worried some certain people in our LGBTQI plus community might come at me and say, well, we can do a triple unicorn horn for our daughter. How dare you be speaking for all of us? What we're doing is taking a very specific family and trying not to say because these types of families or types of representation haven't been seen much on screen at all. That's the worry, is that some audience members might think, well, then you're speaking for all of us. So I don't know how you avoid that. You just hope for the best.
Yeah. Nice. So, Lottie, I want to touch on something that if you were in the Bossing It panel, you would have heard about this, but if not, could you just talk a bit about why you set up King Banana and, its impact?
Yeah, so we set up King Banana with a very specific idea that we wanted to encourage working parents into the industry, not the injury. That too, because that's about being a parent and working in this industry. But anyway, we'd seen that there were a lot of people who were leaving that we thought were absolutely brilliant, absolutely highly skilled, amazing people, dedicated, knew their stuff, had loads of experience. And they were leaving because they had a family and they didn't feel they could juggle both things. And for us, that just seemed absolutely insane. And why should you have to choose one or the other? And why can't you do both? And I certainly wanted to be able to do all of it and kind of have managed to do all of it since my kids were very tiny and just found a way to do that. And I wanted that for other people. And also, it's selfish, to be quite honest. It's completely selfish because I want to have my cake and eat it. But also, it's selfish from the point of view of I want to have the best people working for us. And very often, the best people have a family or have other things going on in their lives. It doesn't only have to be a family. We are like totally flexible working within our company, and not everyone has a family, but everyone has that opportunity, you know, and if you want to have the time for something else other than just kids, whatever, and I wanted to attract the best people. I wanted to have those people on board, and it's been hugely successful for us because we have a very small team of very dedicated, very brilliant people. And as everyone who is a parent knows, you are laser focused when you have the time and you are truly dedicated to what you're doing because you have no other option. And so very often those people are like the best people you can get on board. So yeah, it's been really, it doesn't come without challenges. You know, you have to sort of be cautious about working around people's diaries and good communication so everyone knows where everyone is and there's someone covering something at any one time. And obviously, like, trying to juggle everything at the same time is tricky. But it's been very successful for us and, yeah, worked well. So I encourage everyone to do it.
Wow.
Do you just have a giant ball pit at the door of your office that they chuck their kids in?
Do you know what? I think we should get onto that. It's a great idea. I'm going to have that one.
Fab. I mean, something that's been spoken about a lot at CMC is money, or a lack of a lot of the time. And it's great that there's been schemes and things available, but obviously indie studios and people generally are operating on very tight budgets. And often when we have these conversations about diversity and inclusion and all these things, people think that I've got to, you know, do so much, I've got to do all these projects, I've got to bring people in and stuff like that. And whilst inclusion is not a quick win, there are definitely quick wins that are possible. Are there any like quick wins that you would recommend to studios where it's like, it's not going to solve all your problems, but like if you can just do this, this will really help?
Yeah, I guess the first person we appointed on Maddie and Triggs was Shelley Bowden, who's an access and diversity consultant and based in Brighton. So she's been across our whole strategy from the start and has been just helping us work through it and find those different little pots of funding and those different communities that we could reach out to at the right times as well. And that has been just a lifesaver in terms of just helping us to keep us in check as well. I mean, she's also across, I guess, the scripts and the editorial to make sure that the stories we're telling, are retaining their authenticity and we're doing what we need to do. So that'll be number one. If you can budget for that, I guess I would also budget around it for the support around that's necessary. You know, business affairs support and actually the administration of all those schemes that you might apply for and get funding for to run what you need to do. That all takes a lot of time, which ends up usually being the producer that has to do that then. I do find that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is a challenge. It is tricky. Budgets are really tight. We're all squeezed. It's difficult to work those kind of things into budgets. I mean, we put like mentoring lines into our budgets because we knew we needed to do that across the board. But there's only so much you can do there. And it's still very tight and still very squeezed, as people in the audience know. But I would say there are quite a few different schemes out there, and just seek them out, find them and use all of them is my advice. Like, as we've said, we've done loads of stuff with the BBC Diversity Fund, which has been amazing. And we've had people on that from across all of our different shows that we've done. We also worked with Screen Skills a lot. They do a lot of things with just, we've done like, I can't remember the exact name of it, but a moving on up or a stepping up scheme with them for several people on our team before. We've had people go into female director scheme we did through BBC Diversity again. And we're just doing Think Bigger, which we've just put out an ad for like this week, I think, for a production assistant through that. And so there's quite a lot of different, they're all smallish, but there's quite a lot of different points that you can access, little bits of fund. There's sometimes regional funding as well. And so I'd just say, like, yeah, try and find out about all of them and do all of them. That's my advice.
For us on Let's Go Bananas, we touched on research. I think we're a bit clever about it. It's a show with the central family with gay dads on it, but we don't want to tell a kids show from the gay dad's perspective. We want it coming from the kids. So there was a fantastic research company in North America. It's a group of people raised by gay parents, and they call themselves Queer Spawn, and they were fantastic as a research body because they could tell us what it is like to be raised by gay parents. And I think unanimously they all found their parents very embarrassing. Not because they were gay, because they were parents. But yeah, exactly, normal parents.
Nice. Fab. Okay, a slightly personal one as the youngest person here. Here, not here. But yeah, looking at some of the younger members of this industry, obviously within all your efforts around inclusion, have you had any moments where you felt alienated or you've not felt welcome in that room, and how did you overcome that?
Well, as the second youngest person on the panel, I remember as a teenager and going, oh, I'm gay, I really want to work in kids' TV, and I didn't think there was a correlation between those. It's really sad looking back. I just thought, because this was the 90s, I just thought that probably won't be allowed for a gay person to work in TV. So. Little did I know that bloody 95% of this kids' TV industry is gay. The rest are fluid. So I felt I was just excluding myself and didn't realise. And I think one of the first people I met when I came to this country was a wonderful gay producer at CBeebies who took me on board, not because I was gay, but just happened to be as well. And I quickly realised just how inclusive the industry was.
As the token straight white male on the panel, I feel I should tread very carefully here. I guess, I mean, when we were starting our company around 7 years ago, I remember being at CMC and just feeling like a Beverly Hillbilly walking around, knowing nobody, and it's like, how are we going to break into this industry? So I guess just from that perspective, it took a while. But you learn pretty quickly that it is very welcoming and inclusive. So I don't have any complaints really. But for anyone starting out, I think there's obviously that time, those years at the beginning where it can be tricky. You just have to persevere and keep meeting people and being open. So.
Just like I'm just remembering back to. Again, going on various schemes and things like that, and sometimes you feel a bit like, do I need to go on a scheme to, that feels a bit. Sometimes the psychology of that is a bit difficult to deal with, and you think, am I just here because of a scheme? But you can kind of, I don't know, if you choose to embrace it and be like, you know what, this is an opportunity, and it's fine, and that if that brings me in and develops me, that's fine. And then suddenly you don't have to kind of rely on schemes as an individual, and you're just there, and that's quite nice. But I guess, so that's another thing with like the fund. I like to make sure that people know that it's a fund and that they're invested in it. I know I keep going over this, but trying to take the narrative away from a scheme. Not that the scheme, I'm not saying schemes are bad, but just from how it can feel psychologically, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. No.
I think I'm really lucky, very fortunate, understand my privilege. I've been in quite a good position, so I probably haven't felt that alienated, to be quite honest. I sort of see it as my role to try and help other people feel less alienated as well, and try and make a difference that way, so yeah.
Nice. Fab. And then, so last from me, where do you see like the biggest gaps or opportunities for more diversity and inclusion, looking kind of like roughly the next 5 years? What would you like to see happen, and what actions do we need to start taking that people aren't really talking about right now?
I mean, I'd love to see, there's a lot happening at the moment, but seeing queer characters on TV that are just there, that's just part of them, and it's not the main driver of the plot or story.
I guess when you're talking about like social inclusion and different access to the industry for for people who mightn't have gone to university or might have had a chance, I think there's a massive gap there, and we tend to operate in fairly rarefied circles, even if we're doing quite well across the board. I think, and that's maybe a broader, inequality question, really. But I think that's something that's pretty glaring to me.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I was going to say the same thing. I think social equality is really, really massively tricky one to... I mean, everything needs more work, to be quite honest. Every area needs more work. But, like, social equality is such a tricky one to crack, especially in this industry, because of the way that we work and because it's all kind of like you have a project for a certain amount of time. And so, yeah, I think, there's very few jobs for life anymore, especially within this industry. And so that one is one that I think needs a lot of attention, and how you go about it is really hard. But, yeah, it'd be great to do more in that area, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, again, when we're talking about that, it's always hard to measure as well. I've had conversations with people saying, how do you measure it? And, like, what does it even mean? And you're trying to increase that representation when it's hard for anyone in this industry to get a contract. So you sometimes feel like you're fighting a massive tide. But I feel like the fact that everyone is having the conversation about it, strategies are being, especially at the BBC, they're being put in to make sure that we are, increasing diversity and inclusion across the board. And I guess, in the next 5 years, I don't think we'll get super far, but, we're all aiming for it. And like in an ideal world, you won't need a role like I'm in, because we won't have to be like pushing everyone to be diverse and inclusive, because everyone will just be doing it. But, that's not in 5 years' time.
Yeah. Nice. Can we get a round of applause for these panelists? Right. Does anyone have any questions? Oh, we've got some hands. Oh, we've got lots of hands. This is good. Normally, people are very shy with hands. This is lovely.
Hello, thank you, everybody. That was really, really interesting. And my question is picking up on some things that you, Lottie and Stefan, were saying. I have a mentee scriptwriter on a series that I'm working on at the moment, and she's from a lower socio-economic background, which I think in itself is one of the sort of categories of diversity that can be harder to probably identify or define. And I'm really keen that it isn't just box ticking, that at the end of this series, she has her first screenwriting credit on a preschool TV show that won't even appear until next year. And I really want to be able to help and make suggestions to her, like, what next, so that it isn't just a one-off for her. But at the moment, I'm seeing the end of the script writing coming up and thinking, I don't really know what I will say beyond, I will continue to support you and tell you about opportunities I hear about. But, we're freelance script writers. There's no defined career path anyway. So particularly for someone so new who doesn't know the industry at all, where should she be looking next?
Well, one thing, definitely point her towards BBC Writers. It used to be known as BBC Writers Room, but it's just such a great place. They don't just have opportunities at the BBC, but they will show you all the opportunities outside of that, in terms of where you can send scripts to get developed, to get stuff made, even to get more credits. So there's, I don't know if they still do it at the BBC, but there was a radio series called Newsjack, where you can get credited by just sending in your scripts, your sketches and stuff. That's more like topical comedy stuff. But there'll be lots of other opportunities out there where you can get either a quick credit or develop as a writer. So from a BBC perspective, try BBC Writers, but I'm sure Lottie has, and Tim probably has some good advice from that as well.
I mean, I don't especially, but I was just going to say, just introduce her to everyone you can. Just give her everyone's details, get her to put herself out there as much as possible. That's all I can say, really. And the more people that, you've got in your network and that that might have work coming up, the better. And that would be my advice, really. And someone once said to me, when I was coming to the end of a job and I didn't have everything lined up, they said, like, don't drive yourself mad, like sending 100 emails a day or whatever. Just set yourself a target. Like, do some other stuff, but set yourself a target of like 1 a day or something. Send 1 email a day targeted to someone that you'd like to work for. And yeah, just encourage her to be proactive, seek out as many different people she can meet and get advice from as possible, really. That'd be my best suggestion. I wish I had something she could write on. Maybe soon.
Fab.
Sorry, hi. Hi, I'm Joy. It was really nice to hear, Stefan, about the inclusive environment that was created on kind of Spark for those neurodiverse writers and creatives. As a neurodiverse creative myself, those traditional processes, how we pitch, writers' rooms, can be incredibly overwhelming and daunting, and they don't work for everybody. It'd just be really nice to hear from you guys how you see these processes changing and moving as we go forward to be more inclusive and really adapt. So it's not just productions that are focused on those neurodiverse characters that have that in their production processes, but on any kind of production.
Yeah, I can answer that. I think people are thankfully getting much more aware of it. And we had autistic writers in our writers' room, and we were very aware of that. And Becky, who sat in the audience, did an absolutely wonderful job as our head writer, like leading that and helping out with that. And Andrew, actually, who sat in the audience as well, and creating an atmosphere that was appropriate. And it's just about asking people about their needs and making sure you take that into consideration. And it is just putting it to the forefront of your mind again. It might not be how you usually do things. It might not be how you usually think. So you need to ask someone who's in that position what you need to do to make sure you get it right, and just check in with people, regularly, and as many people as you can, about whether there's anything that they need from you to make things work for them. And if you don't know whether they're autistic or they have extra needs in any way, then it's best to just ask everyone. And then someone can let you know and volunteer it. And I'm sure everyone on this panel would be like totally up for making sure they get it right and would want to do that. So it's just about, asking those questions and making sure you're adjusting things to make that happen. Because obviously then you get, again, it's selfish, then you get the best talent. You get the best people, so it's about making sure you can reach everyone to make sure you get those really, really great people on your team.
And that's where the 5 A's come in. So that's the first one, is ask.
Yeah.
And that's what we should be doing in every stage. So I think you mentioned pitching as well. If you're coming to a pitch and they've not asked you if you need certain adjustments, then that's their bad, but or our bad. But you can then say, look, actually, I need this and this, and we're going to be more than accommodating to make that work.
Yeah, and you have to be brave to do that, and that's a shame that you do. But please do if you can, because then it makes people more aware of it for the next time, and they'll think of it next time, and they'll make those adjustments for someone else without them having to ask. So it's great if you can speak up.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for the talk and talk about inclusivity and all that stuff. It's been really interesting to hear. My question concerns multiculturalism and sort of that cultural exchange, because I think that intersectionality is such a huge part of moving forwards and bringing people together. So how in writers' rooms and within narratives and show ideas as well, can we sort of incubate that environment so that people of different diasporas and different family dynamics and backgrounds all come together and we can model and display a multicultural exchange for people to look at who are coming to watch these programs?
Good question. So it's always on our minds, right? When we're putting together a writing room, I think there's a bit of power that you have, or if you're the head writer or the producer or the showrunner or script editor, you're always thinking about who's going to be on the team. If it's a 52-part episode, there's going to be quite a few writers. There might be 8 to 10 writers on the show. So we're asking ourselves those questions all the time. And if we don't know writers from certain backgrounds, then we'll certainly ask each other. We'll ask other people who've put together teams for recommendations. And on Let's Go Bananas, I was reaching out to everyone I knew who'd had written a show to find out who. First and foremost, I want funny, great writers. But also, for a show like this, it was important that we found writers from all sorts of backgrounds as well. So it's just putting the feelers out there. And going beyond who you know already, which is easy to do, to just hire your friends. It's finding the unknowns out there.
Yeah, tapping into networks. I mean, Chitra's the master of that, so that we were very lucky because she knows anyone who's everyone, everywhere. So that was easy for us. But yeah, I think it's like if you've got a subject matter that you're focusing on, it's about tapping into the networks of people who know most about that, or who are from that background, so that you can get that genuine point of view in your team.
My question is specifically for you, Tim. First of all, congratulations on that. I think a lot of people will know that in the UK, due to Section 28, we're really behind with where we should be with LGBTQ plus resources and not even resources, as you say, just normalising. So my question to you is, in the future, I mean, I'm cheeky asking this because I can't actually commission anything for you, but I would love, just because I love your work, I would love to see you write something that isn't animals, even though I love the animals. I don't want next year to find out there's no animals, but something that is very human in how it looks, but also maybe for slightly older kids, because I didn't realise I would want this until recently. My son is gay, and he said he knew when he was 11. And so I love what you've done. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it, but like another perspective, I think about when I go to schools, the kids that already know that they are gay and don't have a way of embracing that and celebrating that. I don't want them just to be tolerated. I want them to be celebrated. And I think that you would be the person, you'd be doing an amazing job of that. Is that
no pressure, Tim.
Next show idea. Go, Tim.
That is a lovely question, and what a lucky son do you have. Sorry, getting emotional.
Oh.
I have a great mum too. Sorry, you moved me. It's an interesting age, 11. That's fantastic. How wonderful. And there's loads of great shows being made. Heartstopper, would Heartstopper be good for an 11-year-old? I think it's lovely. I think so. And it's kind of vanilla as well. I think it's a good, there's lots of shows out there, but maybe not sex education just yet. I'd love to do more of that, for sure. Yeah, I write a lot of preschool, but I'd love to do more. I want to do stuff for adults. I want to write a rom-com about a horrible referendum that Australia had to go through to vote for whether or not my marriage could be legalised in 2017. So there's lots of stuff I'd love to do. But thank you, God, and all the best.
Fab. And then last one over there, please.
I know it's the last one, but my friend next to me also wants to say something too. But can I just say, it's not a question, but it's a point. The shows that you guys made, it's really amazing. And I part-time teach at universities and animation courses up in the Northwest. As an observer, I've actually seen people of inclusivity and students who really want to express their stories, and similar to what you guys are doing. And it is working. It is. I mean, we're seeing the talent. I'm seeing the talent that's coming up, and it's that. The thing is that, like, even though we have to just encourage them to, even if they're trying to be a writer, director, even the animation industry or television itself, it's important that we have to open that path more. And yeah, that's how we. I'm trying to phrase this right. What would you say is have you actually gone to universities or courses and seen that, and seen the talent from that perspective?
I think education is really important because we are trying to change the industry and encourage more people into the industry from every different area. And I think we do sometimes tend to do things with younger kids, actually, like right from the very young age. We sometimes go into primary schools and have chats with the kids there about what we're doing and the kind of jobs that are available in TV, because I suppose we're used to working with that age group as well, so that's probably why. But also to try and encourage people from a very young age and to sort of open their eyes and make it. I didn't know growing up that, you know, you could do any number of these, you know, there's such an array of jobs in kids media that loads of people, most people outside of it don't know anything about, right? So it's good to go in and sort of tell people that we're looking for their story. It's about them, you know, that it's not, you know, it's not a highfalutin thing. It's like if you've got a story to tell, if you want to get into it, there's a whole array of things that you can do, and to just sort of let people know a bit more about it. So we tend to actually talk to people at a younger age, but I think, yeah, I mean, at every age, it's great to talk to young people about it, and we want to encourage more people into the industry, yeah.
Yeah, I think the link between...
really sorry, we've got to stop it there. But everyone will be outside, so you can talk to them afterwards as well. Can we just give one more round of applause to these amazing panelists? Thank you. And there is a takeaway page from this session that you can download. The link will be on the page for this event, or you can use the QR code here to access it.